Finally, it worked. It's live streaming.
Andres, I think we can start as this is live streaming right now, so people from YouTube can hear us. Should we start with our introduction?
Yeah, I think we should start.
Yeah, maybe you can start with introduction.
Sorry, who?
Right.
Andres?
Yes.
Do you want us to make an introduction?
Today from Palestine.
I think Andres' internet connection is not stable.
Yes, maybe it's because of the live stream. So I think we should already start because live
I'm
stream is
sorry. Yes.
happening. So maybe you can start with introduction, and Andres can join us later.
Okay, Noor, do you want to start or shall I start? What do you think? Or what
No,
do you
Manal, please start because I want to know like something. I can't just introduce myself if you want now. My name is Nour Owiss. I am a lawyer and I'm journalist. I was living in Syria, now living in Lebanon. I am from Palestine. That's only.
And I am Manal Shqair. I am a climate activist and international advocacy officer of Stop the Wall campaign, a grassroots organization based in Palestine, mainly in the West Bank. And I'm glad to be part of this discussion, and thanks for Swana for making this event. And yeah, maybe I can start talking about Palestine as a climate justice issue. The thing that we wanted to highlight through this event. So, the fact that Israel is advancing its settler colonial objectives and entrenching its apartheid regime, subjugating us in Palestine, is being realized through degrading our environment is the least I can say about the reality that we're encountering and we're living in here in Palestine. So, we described this as climate apartheid. And Israel's climate apartheid manifests itself in two ways. The first way is to destroy our environment and cut our relationship with it, and brutalize it and weaponize it against us in order to obliterate our existence as a people, as an identity, as a culture, and as a history. And the second way through which Israel's climate apartheid manifests and is through making it harder or even impossible for Palestinians to adapt to the climate crisis, especially in vulnerable areas like the Jordan Valley and the South Hebron Hills. And to trace back when this started, it actually started during the coming into being of Israel in 1948, because that year marked the start of the environmental degradation, about which I'll give some examples in a minute. So in pre-colonial Palestine, more than 50% of the population was rural, which means that they depended on the land for livelihood and to maintain life. And the relationship with the land that Palestinians used to have was a sustainable relationship, because they understood that to sustain their life, the relationship with their land must be predicated on reciprocity and interdependence. And when Israel was born on the ruins of more than 500 Palestinian villages and towns, the newborn state was baptized by the tears of almost 1 million Palestinians who were forcibly expelled from their land and whose sustainable relationship with their land was totally cut. And to cover up these ruins, the ruins of the destroyed homes, and to prevent Palestinians who were trying to return back to their land from doing so, Israel planted, through, of course, the Jewish National Fund, planted millions of European pine trees that are not suitable to our environment on the destroyed villages. And there were two different reasons to plant pine trees in particular. And one of these reasons was to satisfy the Zionist eco-imagination, because most of the settlers who were arriving in Palestine and are still arriving in Palestine at that time are from the global north, particularly from Europe. So they wanted to make Palestine a European-like colony and make it more familiar to these new settlers coming and settling in Palestine in the places of Palestinians. The other reason is that because pine trees, which are water-hungry trees, of course, they are aggressive trees because their noodles make the soil unhospitable for other kinds of plants, and that has been a way used by Israel in order to decimate or reduce pasture land for Palestinian shepherd and Palestinian communities that were not expelled in 1948, but who became a minority, enduring different forms of discrimination up until now. And at the same time, coinciding with the planting of these trees, the Israeli authorities issued a law banning the Palestinian black goat in the 1950s. And the reason for that, at that time, Israel said that, or justified this law by saying that the black goat is harmful to the environment. So again, using the environment in order to justify the taking over Palestinian lands, because Palestinian shepherds at that time threw the black goat, which used to reach really distant areas, especially mountainous areas. They could preserve their existence on large swaths of land. So in order to stop that, and in order to decimate Palestinians' pastoral lifestyle, Israel banned the black goat. So in light of the ban on the black goat, the absence of the black goat, and the presence of water-thirsty pine trees that are susceptible to high temperatures, especially in the dry summer season in Palestine, more and more wildfires are hitting the country every year. And in 2016 only, the country was hit by more than 1,500 wildfires because the black goat used to be really important to clean undergrowth, and because pine trees are not suitable, as I said, to our environment. And so this means that the increasing wildfires that we're witnessing in Palestine, in the region, are not only because of the climate crisis or climate change, but they are actually colonially induced phenomenon now, because you would never hear about fires in areas where Palestinians cultivate their lands. Like you won't hear that olive groves are on fire unless they are burned down by settlers, as they usually do. And in 1967, Israel started another phase of destroying the remainder of the environment in the remainder of Palestine. I mean, the newly occupied territories, which are East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip, using different ways to do this. It started with moving the most polluting industries from Israel to the West Bank among Palestinian communities by building more and more industrial zones. And currently, there are more than 300 chemical factories owned by Israelis in the West Bank, in the middle of Palestinian communities. And they've been catastrophic to the soil and, I mean, the environment. They are contaminating underground water and also harming Palestinians who are living close to the area, and harming Palestinian workers who are forced to work in these factories just for livelihood. Another thing is that Israel treats the West Bank, where I live, as a dumping site, especially for its chemicals and poisoning garbage, and also for the rubbish of illegal settlements. And it's been estimated that more than 80% of the rubbish generated in Israel's illegal settlements is being thrown into the West Bank among Palestinian communities, particularly in agricultural areas that are owned by Palestinians. And the construction of the apartheid wall, which started in 2002 during the Second Intifada, has also been environmentally catastrophic, because Israel destroyed Palestinian water resources and agricultural land, uprooted hundreds of thousands of trees in the areas where the wall was constructed. Actually, since 1967, Israel uprooted more than 1.5 million trees in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The construction of the apartheid wall has also resulted in the loss of the natural habitat of different species. And it has also resulted in the annexation of Palestinian agricultural land, where Palestinian farmers are not able to access their land, to look after their land regularly, because this is highly restricted and controlled by the Israeli occupation authorities. So their land that have become behind, that are falling behind the wall, they've become almost a wasteland. Another aspect of Israel's environmental destruction, or how Israel destroys our environment, is through practicing water apartheid against us, whose infrastructure is installed by Mekorot, Israel's national water company. And because in the West Bank, Israel controls more than 85% of our water resources, limiting our access to water, especially for Palestinians who live in the so-called Area C, which constitutes more than 60% of the West Bank size, where there are like thousands of Palestinians threatened by ethnic cleansing. And one way to force them out of their land is through practicing water apartheid against them and denying them access to water, because these communities are not connected to the water grid that supplies water to illegal settlements in the area. And just to give you, to show you, how Israel's water apartheid in numbers, Palestinians in Area C are forced to only consume about 35 liters of water per capita per day, while Israeli settlers living in the same area consume more than 600 liters of water per capita per day. And the limited access to water has has destroyed agricultural lands that belong to Palestinians because they are unable. When there is no water, you cannot cultivate your land. And this has increased the desertification of these agricultural lands. So Israel is not really making the desert bloom. Israel is actually desertifying what has never been a desert. And the desertification of agricultural land is also threatening the biodiversity in the area, in Area C in particular. So, and when Palestinians, according to Israel's military law, which only applies to Palestinians, when Palestinians don't cultivate their land for 3 years and above, Israel, through its discriminatory law, can confiscate this land. And different areas of the West Bank have been confiscated through relying on this law. No matter what the reasons, if the reasons are, be it the construction of the apartheid wall or restricting Palestinians' access to water needed for agriculture. Israel doesn't care about the reasons. Actually, it creates the causes through which Palestinians cannot cultivate their lands. And then, but when they are detached from their land, Israel can easily claim that Palestinians neglect their land. They don't cultivate them. So we're gonna confiscate the land. And I'd like to talk about also the JNF. So the JNF is also playing a role, actually a remarkable role in practicing water apartheid against Palestinians, particularly against Palestinian third-class citizens of Israel who live in a Naqab desert in 36 unrecognized villages by the Israeli government, where more than 100,000 Palestinians live. So the JNF, jointly with Migrate, are developing water infrastructure exclusively, of course, for settlers to attract them to go and live in the settlements that are being constructed in the Naqab, while Palestinians are denied access to or are not connected to the water infrastructure that is being built. And at the same time, when Palestinians in Naqab try to resist or protest against the JNF's afforestation project, that through which the JNF seeks to ethnically cleanse the 36 unrecognized villages, the JNF weaponizes water against Palestinians or use it as a tool to suppress them and to stifle their resistance. And that took place in January when Palestinians in Naqab started protesting against the ethnic cleansing of the village of Sawa. What the JNF did through what is called the Green Patrols, and the Green Patrols consist of armed forces that are part of the JNF. They cut Palestinians' access to water in that entire village for 3 days as a form of collective punishment. So if you resist, you won't have access to water. So that's what the JNF is doing. And in the 1950s, the JNF also drained the Hola Lake and its surrounding swamps. And at that time, the JNF claimed that it wants to, or it drained the Al Hola Lake because it wants to increase agricultural land in the area. But the truth is that the JNF wanted again to decimate Palestinians' pastoral lifestyle, because Palestinian shepherds at that time used to depend in the grazing areas surrounding the lake and the swamps. Another reason is that because Al Hola Lake supplies water to the Sea of Galilee, and the Sea of Galilee moves water to the Jordan River, where Palestinians in the West Bank in particular used to depend to access water through the Jordan River. So by draining Al Hola Lake, the Sea of Galilee has been badly affected, and the Jordan River, the flow of water to the River has been also deteriorated. So and that was never without environmental destruction, because the Jordan River is about to dry up forever. And the Jordan River used to move the water from the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea, and now it's unable to do this because there is no water. It's almost a stream full of sewage water. And the Dead Sea is shrinking by a meter every year, and in 40 years time it will just vanish. Just that these are some few examples about how Israel is destroying our environment, and how everything is interconnected. Water apartheid, destroying Palestinians' lifestyle, rural and pastoral lifestyles, and taking over our land, how they are all interconnected. I just wanted to briefly mention the environmental destruction in the Gaza Strip, because I think I spoke a lot, but I want to mention something about Gaza. So in Gaza, the inhumane siege that has been in place since 2007 has exacerbated the environmental destruction caused by Israel. Because Palestinians in Gaza have limited access to water, and Israel, through its constant brutal assaults on the Strip, keeps destroying water and infrastructure and also sewage plants. And this has resulted in the contamination of underground water and seawater. And also this increased the diseases in the Gaza Strip. So a quarter of the disease in Gaza is due to the contamination of water. Also, Israel, every now and then, Israel sprays arable lands in the Gaza Strip with herbicide on Palestinian arable lands, which are close to the fence separating the besieged territory from Israel. And these chemicals, they usually destroy agricultural lands, and they've also proven to cause cancer. At the same time, just as I'm wrapping up, globally, Israel greenwashes and blue washes its apartheid or its environmental destruction by projecting an image of itself as environmentally friendly or as an expert in water and sustainable agricultural solutions, while in fact Israel is only a waster of water and a looter of water and other resources, and it's caused substantial environmental damage. And this is why Palestine is a climate justice issue. And for those climate movements across the world, like Fridays for Future, who are advocating for climate justice, if Palestine is not part of this struggle for climate justice, or if Palestine is not even central to this struggle for climate justice, then the call for climate justice by these movements and others is just lip service, and it's kind of hypocrisy if it's not translated into actions of solidarity with Palestine on the ground, particularly adopting the BDS call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions, because the BDS is a climate justice movement that seeks to dismantle Israel's three-tiered system of oppression, settler colonialism, apartheid, and military occupation, which are the root causes of the environmental degradation that Israel has been creating and continues to create. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so thank you so much, Manal. That was really eye-opening, and a very actionable call to solidarity. And I really hope that it's picked up, and as we will see at the end, it has started to pick up. So we're excited for more collaborations between Fridays for Future groups and BDS. And now I would love to give the floor to Nour Owiss, Noor used to live in Syria, but was displaced yet again, as her family was from Palestine. She was displaced from Syria due to the brutal civil war that is still ongoing on both of our frontiers in Lebanon. So, um, please, Noura, if you would like to tell us how Lebanon is treating you. First of all, I would like to know that, and secondly, how your journey has been, and what can people do to support you in that.
Oh, it's a lot actually. um, Actually, my situation is little bit different. And while Manal was talking, and I'm noticed, and I know that I don't have land. It's meaning I don't have land. I don't have home. I don't have any stable situation. It's hard for me because I'm Palestinian. Actually, my life in Syria was like good, normal in Yarmouk camp, not more. But after the war, it's everything like a change in Lebanon. Lebanon little bit hard for everyone, not only for me, to be honest. But maybe it will be for me the hardest. I think first I am woman, so it's hard a little bit. Like what else? The right of work, it's something not exist for me in Lebanon, and I cannot find any answer for that. It's long a question. What I have to talk about? It's like um, I suffer a lot in Lebanon, and I feel sorry for that. And I think I will not find myself here. So I'm leaving soon. But all of that, I think, just because I was born as Palestinian. Uh, as everyone know, as Palestinian, I don't have any rights to do anything in Lebanon. So I miss to be as a human, have rights to work, to move, to do a lot of things, and that's thing. It's more harder for Palestinian who's come from Syria. To be honest, the Palestinian who was living in Lebanon or the Palestinian Lebanese, they are suffering less than us because they are having their houses in camps and they are working with some NGO in the camps, but not like Palestinian who come from Syria, who don't know exactly if they have the residence right in Lebanon or not. That thing, no one answer us, not in general security, not in the government, and not actually in civil community. So I feel just to find a home. Now I'm so tired exactly nowadays because I'm suffering a lot. So I think just I want to have a home, not more. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Noor. Despite my government's refusal to welcome you and to give you um, your human rights, which is what all of us need. It's not about deserving, it's not about wanting. We all need to have a home, a land, an identity. So you were talking about leaving Lebanon, but it's also really hard. I mean, when we've met in protest, we discussed this, right? The issue of leaving without a proper passport, without an identity, it's unimaginable. And as Lebanese, I feel like it's, I mean, the apartheid extends and the walls extend, and I see no reason for um, for keeping up during my generation all of these ideological battles and what have been turned into religious battles, and truly using very disgusting politics that not only disengage us uh, from that field, but it further radicalizes us, and it is working in effect towards this agenda of properly abolishing all borders, of uh, bringing forth an anarchist revolution, and I couldn't be any happier to be working towards that um, with you both and in the youth climate movement um, for a long time. So we recently saw a lot of hypocrisy um, from this very movement, Fridays for Future, in Europe, um, since the war moved closer there. But we have been fighting Putin here for the past decade and suffering, unbearably. People sinking in the Mediterranean, or because they were returned by Europeans, whereas Ukrainian refugees, um, they have it much easier on them. I also lost my home, so I totally understand where you're coming from. I was born in Venezuela in the diaspora, the Lebanese diaspora, and due to the situation there, I had to move back home here to Lebanon. And as you said, I mean, no one is having it easy here in Lebanon, so um, we're all leaving, and it's very sad. But even myself, I think I might not be able to continue here if the situation, you know, uh, gets worse either before the elections so that they don't happen, or after the elections, or during the elections. So yes, would anyone else like to speak? Farzana, I know you
Thank
had,
you.
or maybe Noor, if you want to clarify anything, or Manal.
Yeah, I'd like to add something. Well, I'm so sorry to hear this and what is happening in Lebanon. It's really so sad, and I hope the situation gets better, hopefully. And I admire your struggle and persistence to, yeah, to make things better. And I just wanted to say to Noor that I mean I do all the time. We feel that in Palestine here we're incomplete without you. I mean the Palestinian refugees who want to return to their land, and we always feel there is something missing. And I want to emphasize that the moment when we in Palestine realize climate justice is the moment when the refugees return to their homes. I mean, we cannot separate these two things because climate justice includes every aspect and everything related to justice. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manal, and thank you, Noor. I actually, right now, what I'm feeling, I just want to talk about it because I really want to hug Noor and say that you can come to us and stay with us, but I don't think world politics actually are giving us that platform where we can say it to one another. But what I really believe that we can work together where you don't need to come to me, but you can go to your country and you can live there, and that's a wish, that's a prayer for everyone.
Thanks. It will happen one day.
Yeah,
Sure.
obviously we really believe that it will happen one day. And to the people who are actually listening to us, I just want to add something from what is happening right now in Palestine, because that's also something we really need to talk about. This is not a conflict, because if someone have gun and someone else are praying, it can't be conflict in both. And in the conflict there need to be both party, but Palestinian people are not in this conflict, they are just praying. And for them Alaska is like the third most holiest place for all Muslims, and that's why they're just trying to uh, pray on that mosque, nothing else than that. And to all people who don't know a lot about Palestine or not about religion, this is not only a religion fact. This is much more than how politics work, how actually the white narrative work, that they are talking about conflict in a religious way, but this is not, because no religion, not Islam, not Jewish, no religion support violence. And the thing right now happening is not something uh, happening just today. This is happening like every year. If we are talking about previous year in Ramadan, same things happen. The year before that, same thing happened, and then they attack Gaza without any, like, there is no point of attacking people who are just trying to live. And this is not about their faith, because people in Palestine is suffering every day. The hunger in Ramadan is nothing new. It's just their faith that they actually fast in Ramadan, but they also have to fast other year. We don't feel it, but Ramadan maybe some of us feel. But ultimately, uh, Israel want people to make it like Palestinian are attacking back, and they want excuse to kill people, and that's why they are doing it in every Ramadan. And if you feel like the video you are saying in internet is hurtful, yes, it is. This is people's life. How can it not be hurtful? And that's why you need to see every video in the internet saying how Israel uh, occupation and how people are actually killing people, like how people can do it. You need to feel it, and you need to understand that you may be taxing this. You may be by being silent, you may be encouraging this, and you need to stop this, because these are real human. This is not just stories. They are human with faith, just trying to live in their own land. That's it. So please support Palestinian, nothing else. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Farzana. Yeah, I agree. It's not a religious conflict, as mainstream media tries to portray our anti-colonial struggle. And by the way, Christians in their like religious occasions, when they celebrate them, like Easter, right now, they are Israeli occupation forces restrict their access to their holy sites in Jerusalem. So, but the mainstream stream media does not cover that, or is not interested in covering that, because they want to, as I said, they want to portray our struggle as a struggle between Jews and Muslims, while in fact Israel wants to control all the holy sites that are important for Palestinian existence in Jerusalem, regardless regardless of the fact that they are Muslims or Christians. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight this. Thank you.
Thank you, Manal and Farzana. We still have one person here with us in the live. Jamal, maybe you would like to add a few words before we wrap it up?
Jamal, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you all. And really, it's very interesting to listen to you, Noor, and also Manal. Manal had covered really the whole issue about the environment. And also, Farzana talked about a little bit about the political issue. But like what I can very quickly say that our struggle as a Palestinian, it's for justice and it's for our existence. The Zionist colonial project which is a settler colonial that started like any last century and continue until this time. It's aiming at like at the end, evacuating the Palestinians from their land or minimizing them, the number of the Palestinians to be scattered into these ghettos and isolations that they are doing, like actually on the ground, either by the wall or the colonies that they are building, and the apartheid roads and infrastructure to facilitate and to the growth of the colonies around, and shrinking the Palestinian possibility land for possible expanding in the future. This kind of policy, which is like fragmenting the Palestinian people, that was going on like since the beginning, which they divided the Palestinians to Palestinians 48, Palestinians 67, and diaspora. And also it has been continued, this fragmentation later on. Gaza isolated from Jerusalem, Jerusalem isolated from Gaza and the West Bank and Gaza isolated from 48. And they didn't stop here, but they continue after building the wall, they creating this Bantustans or ghettos in the West Bank itself, blocking the Palestinians in 38% of the West Bank land, separated from each other, and they control their main resources, which is located in the area under their control that they are expanding settlements in 62% of the West Bank, including the Jordan Valley. So at the beginning, at the end, like the future of the Palestinian in this context will be how they imagine it, how they're working it to be, is like a Native Americans that has been blocked at the end, or Canadians, or the natives in several places in the world that became blocked into reservation. But I think the Palestinian people are really, we are really strong enough. Like, we didn't surrender in spite of all this war that launched against us since last century until now. It's continued, never stop. And all the ethnic cleansing process that was going on, by massacres, by taking over the land, by all what we see going on the ground, which is continue, it doesn't like impact the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian steadfastness on their land. And this is also will tell us, like, this is like maybe a message to Nour, like, we never lost the hope, and our land will be back to us, like, one day. And I would say, I hope that it's soon. Like, we are an optimistic people. We are believe in our capacity and our strength as a people, and the people of the world also. When our resistance, all the past years were not connected from other people's resistance against, like, colonialism, against oppression, and against discrimination and apartheid around the world. And it still continue with the BDS movement that we launched in 2005. This was open a wide range of solidarity with Palestine based on the joint people's struggle, because we didn't look at it from one side. We also support people's struggles around the world against imperialism, against colonialism, and against oppression and racism also. So this is in general, and the hope is just like we have to continue our struggle. We shouldn't stop. We can't stop, regardless of how much they became brutal, how much they became like trying to isolate us as a Palestinians. And this is can be for any other people who are struggling around the world. And now the whole normalization wave of the Arab country, it's aiming at isolating the Palestinians and frustrate them from continue their struggle for their right. But I think they are failing. They are not going to achieve what they are doing, and they are stuck. By the way, they also, like, regardless of what this power that we see that, and the support that they have from around the world, especially the big imperialist power led by the United States. But still, we are strong people. We will continue our struggle, and we will also join other peoples in their struggle as well, because we believe in our humanity. We believe in justice for all the oppressed people around the world.
Thanks a lot, Jamal. Yes, I mean, us too, we would like to, I mean, for me personally, from Lebanon, I find it is my responsibility to also be contributing to all these struggles that people are facing all over the world. And I mean, especially here in Lebanon with refugees and migrant workers who are turned into second-class citizens. So this whole idea of first-class and second-class citizens anywhere, it needs to be opposed. And I would just like to reiterate that the youth climate movement is sort of growing up to face these giants that are exploiting people to the tune of billions of dollars, if not trillions. Um, and on the note of the River Jordan, I would like to also maybe recommend our viewers to read a book called River Without Bridges. And it was written by two Lebanese authors who went to the river after 1967. And it breaks down this dehumanization of refugees that we see, especially revived now again by the media. But it was also a problem back then. And we see um, them tackle this issue that we're human after all, and we might all, especially now with global warming, need to move. So we need to really see our freedom of movement and this stupid idea of borders. We need to see an end to it as a youth climate movement so that we can all collectively tackle the big problems that we're facing that are often intertwined and interlinked to one another. And yes, I would like to also say, if you allow me, that Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. And thank you all so much.
Thanks, Andres.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for making this happen.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining and actually educating us about what is happening on Palestine. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry for the difficulties as well before. Bye, Farzana. Thank you.